Yesterday, we had a great time. When I say we, I mean me and you guys that showed up to the live stream had an amazing time until we didn't. The stream got shut down. We were watching the New Zealand game yesterday, and it was awesome. We watched a lot of content and some videos prior. You guys were giving me a lot of great information. This is where I found Squidge, I believe his name is, and we're going to check this video out. How did Scotland overcome England? Six Nations 2023. This comes from Mateus. I hope I'm saying your name right. He is a member. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much. If anybody else wants to member, just look down below. You hit the join button. If not, that's cool too. If you like this type of content, make sure you hit that like button. If you want to come along with me on my journey about soccer, football, rugby, which I'm having a blast at right now, we're going to be checking out a lot of that stuff, so come along for the ride. Also, next week, I am going to get on and do another live stream, and we're going to do the USA versus Canada. If you guys want to come hang out with me and see if my team actually wins a game, I don't know. But we'll find out next Saturday. But I'm not going to be able to show the actual game because that's what got kicked us off YouTube yesterday. I don't know if it triggered something with YouTube, but I went into my videos today and boom, I got videos blocked and shut off. So you might see some videos just disappearing, and YouTube is saying, nope, you can't show them, even though they've been up for like 4 days or so. So I don't know what's going on, but you know what? I'm still here. Hope you guys are too. Let's jump into this and see how Scotland overcame England.
It's weird to me that the next generation of die-hard Scottish rugby fans won't grow up watching this try.
Oh, okay. So I want to back this up just to let you know how much I really do appreciate Squidge. His link will be down in the description below. If you want to go follow him, hit the like button on this video, watch his content. Because yesterday, not only you guys that were there with me on the live stream give me a bunch of information, I also was able to watch some of his content with a lot of you guys, and it made me understand so much more about rugby, the plays, how much goes into how the plays develop and how it develops across the field and during a try push, or what I don't know what you call it, pushing down the field, going towards the try. And it makes me think about rugby in a different way, which was really eye-opening and amazing for me.
That the next generation of die-hard Scottish rugby fans won't grow up watching this try on a cheap rugby VHS tape fronted by a former international in a winter coat, or a dodgy DVD transfer of the 101 great Scottish tries with no music on the menus. Saturday, just gone, gave us one of the most instantly iconic scores rugby has seen since Cheslin Kolbe crossed in the World Cup final, a try destined to be seen thousands of times by millions of people, contributing to a result celebrated worldwide in a way not possible in those days of DVDs.
Six Nations
Scotland
player of the
stretched
match.
their unbroken streak at Twickenham to 6 years, and Finn Russell's unbeaten record against the old enemy to 6 games, as Scotland won at Twickenham by 6 points, thanks to some heroic performances across the side and 2 unbelievable tries from the man simply known as Dewey. So, how did Scotland pull it off? What did we learn about Steve Borthwick's plans for England? Was it just a satanic result? And is this going to be a false dawn? That question applies to both.
Excuse me. So, full-time
Satanic result. And is this going to
23-29. So, was it a comeback?
be a false dawn? That question applies to both sides. There was something different about Scotland on Saturday. The glorious Finsanity remained, but there was a calm maturity in how they approached not just the final quarter, but the entire game, not normally seen outside of Murrayfield. Learning how to win is the most important skill in rugby, particularly international rugby, and this Scotland team just seemed to have that knack. And a lot of that came down to their knack for always securing points. Scotland averaged 4.1 points per visit to the opposition 22. This is a genuinely insane conversion rate. Something that began with this beautifully worked try, scored in the end by the blight of England himself, Hugh Jones. Honestly, who hates England more than a Scotsman with a Welsh name? This is a glorious line-out move that finds complicated ways to make something incredible.
That pass, though. Did you see that?
This is a glorious line-out move.
How did he get... Dude.
Hates England more than a Scotsman with a Welsh name. This is a glorious...
Look at that. Sideline. How far is that? That was...
simple.
That looked like a long way. Got it out over everybody.
Well-weighted pass off a line-out move like in days gone by. But against modern defences, that requires a little more unpicking. Scotland stand Ritchie at the tail and deliberately overthrow the line-out, cutting out the need for all tired, throw someone up, pass it down to the scrum half, spin it out, all of that stuff. That just gives the defence a trigger for when they can get it right on out. Three Scottish backs then essentially replicate a two-wave attack or phase play. It's an increasing trend where the boot, this space behind the initial line, this kind of zone behind the forwards, boasts not just a distributor, but also a crash option to run a hard line, to smash it up.
That's another thing that I learned yesterday, thanks to you guys and some videos we watched during our live stream. Learning the player positions and their roles. Still brand new to it, so I'm still trying to understand it exactly. But, it gives me a head start and a foot, in the door.
And Scotland have that here. Tuapolotu runs an initial dummy line and also casually trips his man up. Here you are. Look at that. Stopping England folding too far. But out the back,
I call that a pick in the NBA.
To crash up and Russell to distribute. This, combined with the lack of a uniform trigger for the charge, causes chaos for England. All three midfielders have completely different ideas on how to defend this Scottish attack.
They couldn't set up their line.
Stein would be Smith's man and Russell would be Farrell's, but Smith drifts onto Finn and Farrell decides, no, not drifts, smash, and flies up to kill him. Actual murder. Marchant has no idea what either doing. He's drifting on his own wavelength, and it allows Russell the time to time a perfect pass to Jones, hitting a hell of a line, leaving it late so he can cut to whatever option England take. He'd score, but for some fantastic anticipation from Ollie Hazel-Collins, who spies this might happen before Russell even throws the ball and starts tracking back, getting Jones to ground. But Stein runs a fantastic support line, and Scotland get up to the try line. England are massive numbers short on this side, with Hogg barking for the ball.
Wow, if they would have got that out, it would have been game over right there.
Not game over, but Malin's out wide. The winger has to make a tackle and it leaves Stewart covering the wing solo. Once Rugby's own M&M gets back up to his feet, Stewart comes in and has a word. He tells his winger, I've got this, you jog across and cover my position at fullback. You're the one in field, this is your job now. Even giving him a tiny shove as Scotland carry in. However, Malin stands with his hands on his hips as they play one more phase, and that's all the time Scotland need to identify what's on, that he isn't there. White throws a slightly rugby pass and it actually aids Scotland. The English D is right up in their face, it's rushed up, and whilst Hazel-Collins is initially watching,
just pooches it up underneath him there.
Since the ball has gone to Tuapolotu, not to Russell, he rushes up to join his colleagues. This is going to be a crash ball, except, wouldn't you know it, that big centre that they've picked is actually a skillful South Sea Islander, and he dropped it off the toe. Malins isn't chasing across until the kick is already in, despite Stewart's warning, meaning Jones has all the time in the world to chase, gather, and score. It's a lovely move of lovely patience, exploiting expectations and utilising how subtly skillful this Scottish team can be. Their kicking game went far beyond the attacking stabs and also into a proper lethal weapon the whole way through the match. One of the most interesting aspects about how England approached Saturday's game was in the way they deployed their kicking game and how Scotland were able to counter it. I think many expected Steve Borthwick's side to adopt a largely Leicester style of play with little bits
That's something else I didn't anticipate or realize how much the kicking and setting up placement, ball placement, field position, stuff like that comes into it. Because before I would see, they'd get the ball and boom, immediately kick it and be like, well, why didn't you even try to run it? You know what I mean? So all this stuff is awesome to learn. More of the strategy, get deeper in the weeds of, the intricacies, I can't talk, of rugby.
Any expected.
Makes it so much more enjoyable to watch.
Steve Borthwick's side to adopt a largely Leicester style of play with little bits, every now and again a flare coming from Nick Evans' Harlequins influence. But England on Saturday kicked like Harlequins. It's a tactic I talked about in my video on kicking last week, but it's kind of explained by these two examples.
I'll have to check that one out.
After a good carry here, Smith brings a forward onto the ball excellently, and with the gain line crossed and quick ball secured, Scotland are scrambling to cover the overlap generated. Hogg has no idea whether to stand up or drop back, and Smith slides in behind him. Russell does recover, but gets trapped at the bottom of the ruck, and this could so easily have been a turnover for England, a penalty on the 5-metre line. And then, some 10 or so minutes later, Smith thumps it
30,
along
he can't count.
finds grass, in the hope the bounce will force the Scotch cover cover to rush their kick back, their return kick to him, as they have less time. And sure enough, yep, it goes straight into Stewart's breadbasket, who runs it back. England have already made now a 20-metre net gain on where Smith first kicked the ball, but once they go right out to the other touchline, because of how Smith was kicking on the earlier dink, such as the previous example, they're now lighter out wide, and Hogg is nowhere to be seen. He's standing right back, allowing Hassel-Collins to burst down the wing. England get quick ball, and Ludlam then makes a great carry, almost offloading to put Donbrandt straight through for what would have been certainly a try chance, if not a try itself.
He missed the ball.
Kicked the ball a lot in order to open up space and manipulate a defence.
Oh, so the Harlingtons is another team.
And now England kick the same way. I find it incredibly interesting that Borthwick has clearly decided that the kicking falls under the remit of attack.
Oh, then he kicked it again.
Defence, as far as the coach devising the tactics around it is concerned. And frankly, I think it kind of explains a lot. England's attack looked pretty ready to rock and roll, but their defence, a few weeks into a new regime, was regularly
got around the corner
open because they weren't kicking in a manner that promoted it.
He didn't have the corner, man. I thought number 11 there was supposed to have that outside corner.
These were brand new to England and virtually all of their players who don't play like this at club level. And it's totally unlike anything Eddie Jones was running last year, where Scotland have been playing a similar set of tactics for around 3 years. And they use this to pull them pretty far out of shape. The Nick Evans kicking strategy wants you to be kicking on the front foot whilst you're still going forward to cause maximum panic in a defence. But this is perhaps a slightly too literal example of kicking on the front foot from JVP. Hogg can easily cover, but the tactic does ultimately kind of work. His clearance is hurried, he doesn't have much time to aim, and Scotland have no time to set the defence, so Stewart can place a lovely bomb into this space that he spots for himself to chase. He almost recovers, which would have left Scotland really scrambling. That would have been a huge problem, but in the end, they can set up and clear themselves next phase. But Stewart puts in another belting kick. This is a really good kick, splitting Hogg and Russell, getting England
right in the pocket
in this kicking duel. Except Scotland have been doing this for years. They know England are on top, and Hogg makes one workmanlike master chess move. He thumps it long the opposite way, away from where Stewart and the best kickers are, and towards the debutant winger, who sees room in front of him. He sees it's only Hogg chasing his own kick, and instead of scanning the full field, just thinks, this is my time to have a crack at Twickenham, just like I've been dreaming about ever since I was a wee little posh boy. What he doesn't see, however, is any support around him, because there isn't any. Jones and Hogg follow up, and the fullback
he
gets
just full on wanted to get that ball up.
Turnover, pretty much exactly what I was hoping for.
Wait a minute.
Fullback gets over the ball himself to win a turnover.
So, okay. Here's where my ignorance comes in. Once they're in this scrum or maul, right? I didn't know other players could just reach in and grab it. I thought you guys might have to, give me some knowledge here. I didn't think he could go in and grab it
Jones
right here.
Jones and Hogg follow up, and the fullback gets over.
I thought they had a free roll out and then start to play.
With the ball himself to win a turnover, pretty much exactly what I was hoping for. He was hoping Hassel-Collins would run this back because it'll isolate him. This, meanwhile, is an incredibly even kicking duel. England arguably making more ground, but Scotland play it smarter. Once again, this kicking tactic is all about trying to disorganise the defence rather than necessarily make yardage, and Scotland give us a masterclass. Because the English players are chasing their own kicks, the player marking this corner changes every time Scotland kick there, and there's nobody else really back to chase the kick here when Hassel-Collins, rather than Stewart, gets it. He hits it long. This is a really good kick though, and whilst Russell has loads of time to make this kick, he looks up and sees, because everyone else was in front of the kick, Hassel-Collins is alone in following up. He throws it wide to Van der Merwe, and not only does it force both English centres to commit to this side of the pitch, but it's also pulled Hassel-Collins so far out of position, because for a long time he was the only guy chasing, so he's followed it across, he's followed the play across. OHC makes the tackle, and in the meantime, Russell has set a pod of forwards for him to play out the back of and work it wide, because Collins having hassled Duhan means that there's nobody on the far wing. Stain can step the retreating Ben Olds before linking up with Hogg, who then bombs the final pass, but it's still a hell of an exit from 22. It's very good. It's always the way with Finn Russell when you watch him back. What at the time felt like a risky moment of maverick madness running it from his own 22 was in fact a calculated beat of utter genius, thinking a play ahead, knowing he can pull Hassel-Collins out of position and leave England backs completely out of their defensive shape. But look, let's be honest, right? That was far far from the most notable, impressive Scottish counter-attack of the game. Sometimes, analysing a try like Duhan van der Merwe's feels a bit like letting daylight in upon magic. But in this particular case, the magic very much remains. After England clear, it's a classic counter-attack trick of scanning for your own players, not for gaps in the opposition defence. A few Scots put their hand up, but George Turner here, who had a brilliant game by the way, he was phenomenal, is wonderfully subtle.
Just bowled him over.
Stopped still, his shoulder in the way, so Farrell can't get his...
Just ran right by him.
Duhan targets this, he runs through. And from there, it genuinely is magic.
Now it's just a foot race.
How a man built like the BT Tower.
Man, he looks determined. Look at the look in his eyes.
Around players is astonishing, but a second magic trick occurs when you look from this angle and keep your eye on which arm Dewey is holding the ball in. His transfer from one arm to the other so he can fend Don Brandt occurs
like the running backs in the NFL.
With a kind of subtlety you wouldn't think was possible from a guy who's probably only able to be...
That's crazy. So that's another thing that I really like about rugby is the knowledge and skill set. You have to be well-rounded when it comes to the way I look at rugby. Obviously, is coming from an NFL perspective because that's what I know, right? And so all my reference and stuff is going to be from that. Like I talked in the live stream, guys, I don't think it has to be NFL or rugby. It can be both. You can enjoy both for whatever, each sport for what they are. But with rugby, you're playing so many different styles, I guess, when it comes to like what I refer to as the NFL for football, my reference, knowing, proper technique and stuff for when you become into the running role like that, switching the arms, off arm, and stuff like that, to receiver, defensive back. It's just the strategist. It's just crazy. It's awesome.
Stepping Van Poorfleet with a kind of subtlety you wouldn't think was possible from a guy who's probably only able to be killed by coastal erosion. And yet, no,
wait a minute. What did he say? To a guy that's only going to be able to be killed by coastal erosion?
Possible from a guy who's probably only able to be killed by coastal erosion. And yet, no.
So he's built like a freaking, what's it called? A stone cliff or something. You know what I mean? One of those big old freaking mountain cliffs that just nothing but just stone can only be killed by coastal erosion.
You wouldn't think it was possible from a guy who's probably only able to be killed by coastal erosion. And yet, nope. Duhan pulls it all out, destroying England so thoroughly you'd think he's the Conservative Party. Yet, despite the new regime rust and Scotland's
I love his little digs.
Trickiness, we did see England's attack start to function, with Marcus Smith having one of his best games in a white shirt. Smith got rave reviews for his performance at Merwe last year, but the display on Saturday, was completely night and day better. I've just been back and watched Smith's performance from last year's game. He was so much better on Saturday. Not only was his kicking game infinitely improved, largely for the fact that he was playing with his more familiar Quins tactics, but over the last year he's developed an amazing patience and knack for knowing when to pull the trigger on his ever-shining golden gun. This attack begins with England ballsing up a clear two-phase tap move. Genge carries slightly sideways to tie in as many tacklers as possible. Then the move clearly is Don Brandt fold to the short side to draw a defender round and Curry charges straight. But Genge has gone too far sideways and Don Brandt keeps to his line. But Curry thinks the move's no longer on, so he tries to pull out until he sees Van Poorfleet's
that was a weak little pass there. Yeah.
Game line, everything's a bit of a
wasn't able to get a good hand on it.
Carry, totally disinterested until they have some actual forward momentum. Another phase, Farrell calls it out, but Toje takes it instead of passing it out, and it leaves England's options slightly diminished. So Smith plays a phase off 10, just calmly calls for the reset on the open side. England finally get a good carry, and they go wide. Now, this is a very interesting formation we'll come back to, but whilst Don Brandt gives the wrong pass, allowing White to drift, the two playmakers can still get it wide. Scotland's defence has started to compress now. Hogg is up in the main line, so Kyle Steyn begins to jog back into the backfield to cover for a chip or kick or anything of the sort, except Smith spots this, and he orders JVP, who's about to pass this way, to instead send a forward straight into him. He makes the tackle, England then play another phase to give them quicker ball to play off, and the moment it's fast enough, Steyn is still off his feet, Smith screams for two forwards to get in his way to buy him time. Similar to Tuipulotu, he wants the Scottish defence to get up in his face, and the ball coming through Sinclair's hands first allows him to do that. Hogg has only just dropped out to sweep across, and Van der Merwe is having to come up very flat, because most passes to a distributor in the boot.
It's going to be 1v2 on the outside.
Smith instead drops it on his own boot at the perfect moment. Malin's able to...
Wow, he came out of nowhere.
Amazing moment of attack.
That dude came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously you can't see it on the screen, but I had no idea there was another player down bottom right.
The perfect moment. Malin's able to chase
Or over
and
far
finish
right.
unopposed. An amazing moment of attack management by Smith, knowing exactly when to pull the big play, and a brilliant finish by Max Malins.
That's awesome. So right here, this really does remind me of the corner. So the quarterback just throwing to a position. So he's kicking to a spot. Excuse me. Kicking to a spot, not to a player. And the player needs to get to that spot, right? And so that's an example, a pure example, the closest I've ever seen for NFL and rugby. Quarterback dropping back, throwing to the back right corner. He knows what he's doing. He's kicking it up over to that corner, and number 14 out there's got to get to that corner
at the perfect moment.
I mean, now I don't know if this is like planned plays or it's kind of on the go. You're looking over there and you kind of, talking to each other just by, non-verbally looking at each other and going to kick it over there, or if this is something that is planned out. When you're in this type of position, here's what we're going to do. You're already on the outside. You don't have anybody in front of you. I'm going to kick it over to the corner, that type of thing.
Malin's able to chase and finish unopposed. An amazing moment of attack management by Smith, knowing exactly when to pull the big play, and a brilliant finish by Max Malins. And whilst there's been a lot of mostly inane shit chatted about how Owen Farrell and Marcus Smith don't work as a combo, despite the pair being responsible for masterminding this, one of the greatest passages of unlocking a defence I've seen in my life, and arguably, almost actually unarguably, the most impressively constructed try of this World Cup cycle so far last autumn, Malin's second try can, if you dig in, really put that to bed once again, and we'll have to do this again next week as well, no doubt. England have the ball a few phases already, but similar to how I discussed the Wayne Pivac attack a few weeks ago, England's new attack appears to work best from an edge, from near the touchline, so Smith and Farrell get out towards that line to set up the attack. Scottish forwards set in on Sinclair here, one of their biggest carriers, whilst the rest stand off, so Farrell can call out the back and fires a pass to Dombrandt, trying to exploit the way WP Nell has stepped in on Sink moments earlier. Faz then entrusts Marcus to make the most of the momentum this generates, and England work the other way. This time Sinclair does carry, keeping England on their toes, and Ben Corrie does something very sneaky. He nudges Gilchrist away from the ruck, forcing White to fill in on the fringe, and from way out here, Marchant spots this. He calls to Farrell, who times the pass perfectly.
Wow, got that hole right up the center.
Fire him over the gain line. And from here, it's a perfect demonstration of their new shape. Eddie Jones, before he had the audacity to point out that English rugby is far too focused around private schools, which it is, was attempting to pioneer a new positionless brand of rugby, which would see the traditional forward groups that make up the 1-3-3-1 type attacking shapes slide about, forwards taking on backs roles at a moment's notice. And what Borthwick and Evans seem to have done is really interesting, because England on Saturday played a very conventional 1-3-3-1 shape, the safest, oldest set shape the sport has, but adapted elements of Eddie's new Maverick system. Here, the free pod disassembles into a straight hands down the line old school move, similar to Scotland's first try. It's a fun, complicated way of playing very simple old school rugby against a top tier defence, and that's what England deployed off the back of Marchant's charge. England are set into their 1-3-3-1 shape, and traditionally Chesham charges here and Genge stays on this side to clean out. He just clears out the ruck whilst Dombrandt joins in. But instead, this is kind of genius play. Genge slides round the back into the boot, despite being in the bonnet himself. This creates an extra man. Farrell could have got here, and is trying to, but it being Genge means Ritchie shoots in, expecting a hard carry. So when he ships it onto Stewart instead, who moments earlier was the guy actually in the boot here, it's a simple draw and give to put the edge forward, the one in the 1-3-3-1, Ludlam, into space. He can draw hog and put Malins over. It's an impossibly inventive, original, creative
second try for
that
14.
Honestly, I think is the first time we're seeing an attacking tactic that's about to change how teams play. A forward entering the boot of his own pod is a revolution that could triple the size of a rugby coach's phase play playbook if those coaches start to catch on quickly. This could happen by the World Cup. This could be a huge, huge trend we're witnessing right here from Nick Evans' attack.
So I wonder, this is back in 2023. Is this something now that is put into the strategies?
Could happen by the World Cup. This could be a huge, huge trend we're witnessing right here from Nick Evans' attack. All of it leads to a picture that, whilst obviously gutting that they lost, leaves England in honestly not a bad place. After rebooting everything from scratch for almost no reason at the new year, England were up against a side simply further along in their journey than them. If this was the first game of a World Cup cycle, we'd probably feel different. And if this was a game played at the end of this year's championship, rather than after just 13 days of Borthwick, Evans and Sinfield being in the jobs, they may just have held out, or we may have just felt very differently. And yet, on this particular day, they came up against an utterly inspired Scotland team. I haven't talked much about the defence, which was the main focus when I covered this result 2 years ago, but man, Scotland were ferocious the full game through. There wasn't a passage of genius game management we got from Russell similar to last year, but instead we just got the most resolute defence, despite the enormity of what they were doing. Never during that final passage did I ever think Scotland were going to concede. They had this growing English attack safely under wraps through some incredible heroic tackling and amazing organisation. The much hyped Hewitt-Pilotu combo was talked
that's the one he paid for earlier.
Certainly saw that, but they were defensively exceptional. Tuipulotu in particular having come on enormously since a slightly jumpy showing in Cardiff last year to become a maestro.
So very physical.
And then we have the forwards. Jamie Ritchie
got the pressure on.
Word has to go to Richie Gray, recalled into the team of proper for about the first time since he got a sensible haircut.
That dude looks big.
Bastard. But he was outstanding. Minute to minute skill set, work rate, set piece focus, making a real difference for Scotland, including in the eventual winning score. Whilst those age-old DVDs of Gareth Edwards' greatest moments designed to be watched time and time again by father and son, mother and daughter, maybe long gone, this Six Nations you'll probably still hear a few things over and over again. Most notably, me screaming, "Kicking is how you open up space for running rugby," time and time again. Even if you don't watch my videos, I was finally just standing by your bins tomorrow night and just shrieking it. But here's the thing, and you will hear this by your bins again: kicking is how you open up space for running rugby. I think teams and fans frequently also overestimate the power of the mark as a deterrent, especially in the last 10 minutes of a close game. It can be a really useful weapon to hand over. We've seen
I'm just trying to understand what he's talking about. So kicking open up for running rugby. I'm assuming so. You're trying to open up the space so you're not having to hammer it in up close and stuff like that. When you kicking, you're able to open up the field, spread out the players, and get field position. Correct?
Especially in the last 10 minutes of a close game, it can be a really useful weapon to hand over. We've seen the likes of Dan Bigger do this in the past, deliberately putting up a kick so the opposition can mark it, because when you're trying to run the clock down as it is, because you've got a narrow lead, having them take 45 seconds over something instead of 5 is a
clock
good
management,
tactic, especially when it leaves them inside their own 22 and will likely result in them kicking it back to you. And that's just what Ben Youngs tries to do here. Kyle Steyn catches it, and from an English perspective, a winger not known for his kicking, standing 8 metres from his own line, eating up a full minute and then about to give it back to you, not a bad thing. Except as Steyn hits it back, a few complications become clear. England initially kicked off a maul. This means all the forwards were grouped. They all chased the kick as a unit, as one unified group, because they were together moments ago for the maul. With the backs, who at the line-out occupied most of the field, they covered most of the space, together out wide. There's a separation of forwards and backs. Youngs hoists it high, but this kick is kinda nothing. If he hits it a bit longer, Russell calls the mark a la Steyn, and they waste some more time. If he hits it a bit shorter, Freddie Stewart can get under it and contest, potentially give England possession of the 22. As it is, George Horne runs a very sneaky line to slow Stewart, but never block him, and it makes it an easy catch for Finn. He can commit Stewart, and free Kinghorn, a second playmaker, who looks up and spies Ezekwe out here is the furthest out forward, so one pass can take out more than half of the English defenders, including all of their pack. Farrell defends this very smartly, backtracking and trying to buy time for Vunipola and the gang to get over, never committing to anything, just as Tuipulotu doesn't himself. He keeps his options open. Kinghorn runs a superb support line, kinda inventing a boot where there isn't one, eventually getting the ball wide to Duhan. With the time Farrell was able to buy, the English forwards have managed to track across the field, except because the danger was over here, every English back bar left.
So everybody got sucked over to the other side of the field.
Previously defending 70% of the field,
if they can get that back out
across about 7 metres. This isn't even an exaggeration. Margin here is the furthest out back bar the winger on the far side. George Horne has run a brilliant line off this break, getting ahead of the play by miles, meaning he's exactly where the ruck occurs, and he brings a forward onto the ball as Finn sets up the attack behind. But this also creates a beautiful new position to attack from. The English backs are still condensed on this side, and Scotland now only have about half of the forwards who travelled across as a group to attack, because the others are at the bottom of this rock. This leaves Itoje and Watson in the centre positions. Itoje's at 12, Watson at 13, with Youngs stepping in on the wing. Everyone horrendously out of position, and Russell threads a beautiful ball to send Dempsey right between the centres. Once again, Horn has got ahead of the play and it allows him to spin it immediately. The only English back tracking across, Marchant, stops to consider contesting, and that second is vital. If he gets across any sooner, Youngs only has to cover these two, but as it is, he has 3 players to watch.
Oh, you got 14 on the outside. Yep.
Get it outside him and put Stain away down the wing. And this is where things get really
Then you got your free safety there. Free safety.
Youngs, Watson and Stewart,
15.
4 of England's 7 backs in useless positions over here. Smith has...
So, kind of off of what they're talking about right here, because I'm seeing a lot of numbers, 21, 23, 15. So this must be, this is late in the game. So they got bench players, second string out on the field as well.
Youngs, Watson and Stewart, 4 of England's 7 backs in useless positions over here. Smith has dropped out to fullback, reducing the number of backs to 2, and it means the England pack, who flooded across the entire field earlier, are stuck. Farrell defends at 10, but Mako Vinopola, a 32-year-old loosehead with a 34-year-old face, is having to operate as 64-year-old centres. Scotland's skills throughout this move are phenomenal, but one of the most impressive aspects is their support play. This sequence is entirely off the cuff. Russell rarely has time to call anything but, a pod of forwards every now and again in front of him, or the old screen runner around him, but the dummy lines are consistently exceptional by Scottish players just picking them on the fly. Screen runner around him, but the dummy lines...
He's called it, he's like, oh yeah, come on.
Them on the fly, just knowing instinctively how to play attacking rugby even when they don't necessarily have the ball or aren't getting it. It continues once Tuipulotu picks up the ball at 9. These two forwards run great lines which holds everyone inside Dan Cole, and Russell lets the balding baked potato creep up on him before throwing the ball wide to replacement hooker Fraser Brown. And this is where everything Scotland have done well.
They have England spread out. I mean,
head. Instead of worrying about Vinopola, who's never going to
everybody was pulled down into the maul.
Brown squares up to fix Farrell, the actual threat. Faz is forced to give him a shove as he unleashes a really quality wide ball to Richie Gray, perfectly selected, the ideal ball he could have thrown. Blair Kinghorn picks his line superbly. If he's on the outside of Gray here, Maylands can afford to drift, backtrack to try and buy time for Farrell to get across, similar to how his captain had done for the forwards a few steps earlier, because Gray can only pass to players on this side of him, so Maylands only has to watch that. But instead, with choices all around, his best option is to shoot up. This is the correct decision for Maylands, and Richie Gray delivers an absolutely beautiful pass. He catches, draws, and gives in spectacular fashion. It's perfect, unbelievable stuff. Especially
the field just looks wide open right there, but it closes down quick.
Doesn't try to do too much himself. He just changes the point of focus and gets it out to the true danger man. There's been a call around the Squid Rugby office for a while here that we should drop the Van der Merwe and just call him Duhan, like a Brazilian footballer. And if ever there was a finish to make him worthy of that specific title, this was it. All 15 Scots have played their part in this try. Every single player has shown their worth, value, expertise, executed for their teammates. And all of it to get the ball into Duhan's
14. Duhan was
arms.
Oh, he's 11.
This is amazing. The step,
no, it's not the same one I was talking about earlier, I guess.
And the power to ride the tackle and make sure, this is really impressive, his ball carrying arm is free despite Don Brandt's best efforts is unbelievable and allows him to stretch out and conquer Twickenham. Because whilst the death of DVDs might mean...
So Duhan, he must be like a hybrid, because I know 11s they're usually speedsters, or a lot of times speedsters, but he looks like he's got the speed and
stretch out and
some of that power.
Twickenham. Because whilst the death of DVDs might mean this clip won't end up on repeat at houses from the brink of the border upwards forevermore, moments like these were never really built for when we press play on our DVD remote. Duhan's unbelievable double to win the Calcutta Cup is a moment that should primarily exist, not on physical media, but in folklore. Because try though Twitter might, there is no replacement for the hairs on the back of the neck feeling as one fan remembers on a cold walk home alone at night in a few weeks' time, or rush shower before work a decade away, how they felt as that ball went over. Saturday gave us the most iconic try rugby has seen since the last World Cup final. It gave us a day that no amount of daylight or moonshine can ever stop.
Or moonshine. Brilliant. Is he? Masuma's done. Yeah. Dude, yeah, you guys make sure you if you haven't already, if you don't already, go watch Squidge. Amazing content. Anybody getting into rugby should definitely be watching his stuff because it just breaks stuff down so brilliantly. Make sure you support him as well. And if you guys like this content, remember, make sure you hit that like button. If you don't like it, go ahead and hit the dislike button. That's all right with me. It's everybody's choice. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one. YouTube thinks you might like one of these videos. Go check them out and let me know. Bye.